Mainers who want to replace the state's two largest power companies with a consumer-owned utility are looking at multiple ways to do that.
Yeah, but what is a consumer-owned utility and how could this affect your rates and reliability? CBS 13 I-Team reporter Marissa Bodner is digging through the data and looking at how the model works elsewhere.
We use electricity every day, but probably don't think much about who's delivering it. That has been a hot topic at the State House, and a controversial one, as some push for a takeover of Central Maine Power and Versant, which served 96% of the state. Instead, the Maine Power Delivery Authority would be a nonprofit utility, owned by customers, governed by an elected board, and managed day-to-day by a qualified contractor. Nationwide, about 70% of customers are served by investor-owned utilities, or IOUs, like CMP. About 30% are served by consumer-owned utilities. In fact, Maine already has 9, including Kennebunk Light and Power District.
We have no dividends to pay to shareholders, stockholders. Our customers literally own the company that we operate.
Todd Shea is the general manager.
We reinvest in our system annually to the tune of about $250,000 every year.
This is my most recent power bill. It shows I used 318 kilowatt hours last month. If I lived in Kennebunk, this would cost me about $49. But over here in Kennebunkport, this is CMP territory. So the same usage now costs almost $57.
We're one of the least expensive utilities in the state of Maine.
The American Public Power Association, which represents most community-owned utilities, says rates nationwide are 11% lower than investor-owned companies. Maine's new utility would get started by using low-interest revenue bonds to purchase the infrastructure from CMP and Versant.
Their acquisition costs.
Brad Viator is from the Edison Electric Institute, which represents investor-owned utilities. He says it's a gamble with no guarantees.
So you're going to have to spend $5 billion to acquire a system, and then you're going to have to make investments within the system. I don't really understand what the path to savings is in that scenario.
A report by London Economics found customers would see higher rates initially and then save up to $236 million over the next 30 years. Another analysis projects it would bring $9 billion in benefits and sooner.
The question you really got to ask yourself is that risk worth it? Is it worth divorcing from everything we've known to chart a new path with potentially having sort of like uncontrollable costs?
But it's not all about money. The APPA says consumer-owned utilities are also more reliable. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, customers of publicly owned utilities experienced about 1 hour of interrupted service a year between 2013 and 2018, compared with just under 2 hours for IOUs. Last year, Maine was among the states with the longest total time for outages. Nebraska among the shortest.
I believe there's an awful lot of benefits to our system.
Nebraska is the only state where all power is consumer-owned. Instead of one big utility, there are more than 160 small ones. They're all represented by the Nebraska Power Association.
And would you recommend the public power model to other states?
Well, I tell you, it's served Nebraska really well for what now, 90 years. This wasn't an overnight thing for Nebraska either. If you think about it, it was all started back in the 30s.
In Maine, the decision may come down to voters at the ballot box. But CMP and Versant have also made it clear they won't back down without a fight. Marissa Bodner, CBS 13 News.
Only